Okay, so we should probably just dive right into it head first. Because there have been some accusations made against myself and this show that I want to clarify, and a situation that I want to address because I want to make it clear that I will not tolerate bullying, and I will not be bullied into making a decision about my show that I don't feel like aligns with us as a show. So, as you know, I did a few weeks ago a reality TV throwback week, and we had a couple of the VH1 reality stars from the Of Love franchise. We had on Safari, we had on Dave, aka 12 Pack. We replayed some interviews we did with Nicole Alexander, aka Hoops, Jason Rizal, aka Heat, and Tiffany Pollard, aka New York. All great interviews, which we released, I want to say it was 2 weeks ago. It wasn't last week, but the week prior. And then we released an interview with Lacey Skulls earlier this week. So since Monday's interview has aired, there's been a lot of drama behind the scenes, and some comments have been made on our Instagram account and on YouTube, along with some legal threats. And so I thought I would just clear it all up, starting from the beginning until what has happened since last night. This is in relation to Heather Chadwell, and I want to make it clear that this is the last time I ever want to address this. Like, I don't care to use this platform to talk about somebody. Like, to me, this is so silly and ridiculous, but I'm going to give my side of it, and I don't really want to address it moving forward because, again, this to me has been so drawn out, so blown out of proportion, and is just really ridiculous at this point. If you don't care about the drama with Heather, or if you weren't, a big fan of our reality TV throwback week a couple of weeks ago, I get it. Fast forward to all of the, Housewives and Vanderpump Rules and Kardashians news that'll be later in this show. But I want to clear this up at the top of this show, so that way we can just get it out there, get it over with, and hopefully I never have to address this again. So, starting at the beginning, many of the Of Love, the VH1 Of Love cast members, so Flavor of Love, Rock of Love, Daisy of Love, I Love Money, all of those cast members were invited on this show weeks ago. And it was for our throwback reality TV week, which I've been wanting to do for a really long time. We had New York, or Tiffany Pollard, aka New York, who was the villain of Flavor of Love 1 and 2. She then had I Love New York. She had New York Goes to Work, New York Goes to Hollywood. She's been on a number of television shows since then. So she came on my show back in the summer of 2018, and it did really well. And so I loved interviewing New York. I loved watching her back in the day. I love watching her even currently. And I decided I loved that era of pop culture. And while we were all stuck in quarantine, this is something I've really wanted to do for a long time. But I just wasn't sure if people were even going to be interested in it on this show, because we talk about current reality shows, Housewives, Kardashians, Very Cavallari, all of that stuff, which is current. So I wasn't sure if people were even interested. But then I decided, you know what, we're doing 3 episodes a week now. Let's dedicate a couple of them to this. And hopefully, the people that love it will love it. And the people that don't care about it will, get through it, and then we'll get back to all of our regularly scheduled programming. So Lacey Skulls from Rock of Love, 12 Pack from I Love New York, Heather Chadwell from Rock of Love, Megan and Brandy C from Rock of Love, Safari from Flavor of Love, Becky Buck Wild from Flavor of Love, Taylor Made from I Love New York. All of these people were invited to participate in that week's content. They were invited to do interviews. I reached out to a number of the Of Love cast members because I wanted to reach out to as much of the cast members. I wanted to reach out to the ones that were the biggest breakout stars from each of the different shows. So Safari confirmed, 12 Pack confirmed, Megan Hauserman agreed to do the show, but we had to rework scheduling because she was sick. The rest of the people that I invited at the time, including Lacey and Heather, and Brandy C and Becky and Taylor Made, all of those people did not respond. They didn't, they either weren't interested, or maybe the invite got lost. Either way, all I needed was 3 guests. I got 2 of them, which is why we ended up doing the best of episode with New York, Hoops, and Heat. So going into each interview, I like to do a little bit of research as the professional podcaster that I am. And so I looked into what Safari had been up to lately. I looked into what Dave 12 Pack had been up to lately. And I knew that Dave and Heather dated on I Love Money. And watching back the reunion, I saw that they clearly had some sort of falling out, because she really went at him in the reunion. She, said that he never made her come. And there was clearly a big issue that she had with him during that reunion when I watched it back. So as I continued to look into both Dave and Safiri, I came across the Talk of Love podcast, which is now hosted by Lacey Scholes and was formerly co-hosted by Heather. I listened to a couple of their episodes, which Heather made I want to say it was like the earlier episodes, definitely episode 2, and I can't remember what other episodes, but I remember specifically in episode 2, she made some comments about 12 Pack. And she said that he cheated on her with Daisy, that he was at the center of her fight with Daisy on the Rock of Love 2 reunion. She accused him of sleeping with Megan. She claimed Megan had been sleeping around, and that's how she got her own show, was by sleeping with the producer. All accusations Heather made. These aren't things that I made up. These are things that I got from what she said on Talk of Love. So in my interview with Dave, or 12 Pack, I asked him to define what their relationship was on I Love Money. I didn't know if it was like set up just for the cameras, if they really were dating, and then, obviously what happened, because we didn't get to see the fallout after the show had aired, or at least from when they were eliminated to the reunion. So that's when he opened up. So I asked to define the relationship with Heather at that time. And that's when he opened up about other accusations Heather had made, including him having an eating disorder and him throwing up his food, which he says was never true. But again, these were accusations that Heather made about Dave and things that she outed him about on Talk of Love. Publicly, okay? Publicly, these are comments that she made and allegations that she made against him publicly, which is how they became information that I had. So the interview that I had with Dave was not about Heather. It was a 35-minute interview, but obviously, people wanted to know I wanted to know about the relationship, but I also asked about Daisy. I also asked about Megan. I also asked about other people. It wasn't an interview about Heather. We even talked about Dave's wife and how he met her right after doing Daisy of Love, and how he was still supposed to do his own of Love dating show and all of that stuff. So when the interview with Dave was released, Heather reached out because she was upset by what he said on the show. She said that, she tried to post like a really long comment on our Instagram page, which was too long to post because there's a certain number of, I think it's either characters or words that you're allowed to post on Instagram comments. So Instagram wouldn't allow her to post that. So she then screenshotted the comment that she was trying to make, and she DM'd the screenshots of the comments she was trying to make to me. And she said, that this was her side of the story and blah, blah, blah. And if I wanted to share it with the listeners, here it is. Here's what she has to say. And then she ended up later saying that she didn't want me to read the message. So I won't even read the message. But the gist of it basically said that she's made up with 12 Pack since his interview came out. She doesn't know why he would be speaking ill of her. She has nothing bad to say about him. And that she was, hurt by the comments that he made in his interview. So understandably, when somebody says that they're hurt by something that was said on my show, I was very kind in responding to her, and how I responded to her. I told her I understood where she was coming from. And that even though we'd already finished our reality TV throwback week, I still extended the invite, even though she had already been invited prior and didn't respond. I extended the invite again to still have her come on the show, not to necessarily defend herself, but to clarify the comments that she made on Talk of Love and to give her side of the story, because I believe in every story there are 3 sides. There's the truth, and then there's his side and her side. So I was like, if you want to come on the show and clarify your side and give people an update on what you've been up to since all of these reality shows, I'm happy to, have you on the show and allow you to, share your piece. She agreed. She said to follow up with her next week because this was a busy week. So I did. I followed up with her the next week. Now, around the same time that Dave's interview aired, I also heard from Lacey because a lot of people heard my interview with Dave, and I guess because there was drama brought up about Dave on Talk of Love from Heather, people wanted to see if I could arrange for Dave and Lacey to do something together and to have Dave go on Talk of Love. Again, I said it on my Instagram stories, as much as I love that everybody thinks that I have the power to do that, I have no control over Talk of Love. I have no control over who they book on the show. I would love to see Dave on the show as well. But I just said that, like, I have no connection to Lacey or Talk of Love, but I would love to see Dave go on their show, and I would even still love to have Lacey on my show. I loved watching Lacey, and, it would be great to have her on the show. And now, to clarify, I've been doing this for a very, very long time. So I know that when guests say that they want to do my show, there's a good chance that they still probably won't do the show. So when Lacey and I did connect after Dave's interview, again, I invited her prior, but we ended up connecting after Dave came on my show. And so that's where she said that, yes, she would love to still do my show. And so I was like, okay. So at the same time, I had Lacey that was saying she was interested in doing the show. And I had Heather who said she was interested. And like I said, I've been doing this show for a very long time. So usually when you have two people, when you have any person really that's like, yeah, I'll do your show, or you have a publicist that's like, yeah, we'll book them on your show, there's a really good chance, and I know because I've had to book guests and backup guests and even do solo episodes or like call my friends to come and do the show, people cancel all the time, or scheduling comes up that doesn't work out. Like, issues happen, and there's a good chance that like these interviews don't end up coming to fruition for whatever the reason may be. Usually it's scheduling, which is always a challenge, even in quarantine. So Lacey said she was interested in doing the show. Heather said she was interested in doing the show. I was kind of talking to them separately. Again, I didn't really want to pit them against each other, so I wasn't necessarily willing to tell them that either one was still in talks with us, because I figured one of them would end up dropping off. And if it would get to the point where they were both going to do the show, then I would, obviously give them each a heads up before interviewing them, or even make a decision on which one I would rather have on the show, because we've run into that issue before as well, where I've had to turn people down. So a week goes by. I follow up with Heather. Heather tells me that she's doing a project right now and can't commit to doing an interview, which, I mean, I thought was kind of weird, because like we're in quarantine and like who can't spare 20, 30 minutes to do a Zoom call. But anyway, I wasn't surprised for all the reasons I mentioned prior. Like I said, this happens all the time with different guests. Sometimes they just don't come to fruition. So Heather then reaches back out again, saying that she's upset that I didn't take down Dave's interview. And I was like, but I didn't know. First of all, we don't take down interviews, and I didn't know he wanted me to take down the interview. And then she insisted that I have him back on my show to say that he had mended things with her and that things were fine between them. And for me, it's unusual to have a guest on back to back, especially if they're just coming back to retract a statement that they had made in an earlier interview that had aired less than 2 weeks ago. It just wouldn't make sense to like take down an entire interview that I did with somebody only to give them 5 minutes to say, hey, I'm actually on good terms with this person now. So I told her I actually hadn't heard from Dave at all since or I heard from him, but it had been like, cordials, thank you for doing the show, blah, blah, blah. But I hadn't heard from him saying that he wanted to come back on the show to update me on Heather. But I told her, like, hey, if he is interested in doing that, like, fine, I'll give him a 5-minute call-in where he can just say, hey, me and Heather are good, like, whatever. Like, but I'm not going to go out of my way to, like, get him to do that. Like, if he wants to clear it up, that's his responsibility to reach out and be like, hey, I want to clear this up. So then she goes on to say that she doesn't want to do my show anymore because now she feels like it would be a setup and that I'm just setting her up to, look bad or to, I don't know what she thought I was setting her up for. So I was like, fine, whatever. I moved on. I didn't even try to defend it because I was very kind to her with my invitation. I told her that I believed that it was fair to give all parties a chance to share their side of the story. I didn't give her any indication that I would try to set her up in any way. That was her own projection. Then I heard from Dave, and apparently Heather was also blowing up his phone as well, claiming that our show had blocked her for some reason, which is 100% false. She was never blocked from us, at least not at that time. And we didn't at any point, like during that time, block her. So I assumed what she was referring to was when Instagram wouldn't allow her to make the comment that she was trying to make on our video, which then led to her screenshotting and sending me all the DMs. But that wasn't because anybody blocked her, it was because her message was too long to post. So I then decided to let Heather do Heather's thing. And so I followed up with Lacey because she and I had been messaging about having her on the show. And I will say that Lacey was the kindest and easiest person to work with. I've worked with a lot of different people. Some of them have been really easy to work with. Some of them have been really difficult to work with. Lacey was by far one of the kindest and easiest that I've ever had to work with. And I'm not just saying that. That's how great of an experience, easy of an experience I had working with her. So initially she had reservations about discussing Heather, which I completely understood. But like I told her, like, look, if she wasn't comfortable, I get it. But I think that if we don't address it at all, it would kind of be like the big giant pink elephant in the room that most people want to know about, but that, we're obviously not talking about. So I was like, look, given Dave's interview and what he said and being that they were connected to your podcast, I think it would be... And also because she was coming on to promote her podcast and Heather was a part of it. Like there was just, to me, it didn't make sense for us to completely ignore Heather from the entire interview. Because I was like, but like we can't not discuss it because Like, it's kind of, again, the big elephant in the room. I was like, but if you are uncomfortable, then we'll make sure we do it in a very, tactful way, in a way that, doesn't make it look like we're trying to attack Heather or, make her, like, I didn't want Heather to feel badly about this. My show isn't designed to, like, destroy anybody's lives or livelihoods or anything. Like, but it was, again, one of those things that it's like, you can't address it without, it's like if somebody had just gotten engaged, or it's like, here, perfect example. It's like if, I had Kristen and Stassi on my show, I had Katie and Stassi on my show from Vanderpump Rules, and then I had Kristen coming on the show, and I didn't address anything that Stassi or Kristen had to say about her. It would be weird because they are all on a show together. There's beef between them currently. They're public figures. Like, it would just be weird to not address it. So Lacey was like, you know what? Fine, we'll address it very lightly. She was, she felt a little more comfortable knowing that, we would do it and not make the interview about that, because I didn't want to make the interview about that. There were lots of other things I would rather catch up with Lacey about. So we did Lacey's interview. It was great. We released it. And of all of our interviews, with all of our interviews, there are promo clips that we cut out of the interviews and publish them on YouTube and Instagram. So these are teasers from the interview, which are usually a few minutes, that are clips of the actual full interview that give people a taste of what we cover. And they're ultimately designed to encourage people to tune into the entire episode, which is on iTunes and Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. So I debated over which parts of Lacey's 1-hour interview that we wanted to use to promote the interview. And so I was like, do we want to talk about the Heather stuff? There was Dallas stuff. There was I Love Money 3 stuff. We normally release at least 2 clips. And so I wasn't sure if I wanted to release the Heather stuff because I didn't want to stir up the drama. But at the same time, I'm like, look, this is what people are interested in right now. And with all of the recent Heather drama, I figured it would draw the most interest. And at the end of the day, it's marketing. It's what we do in every single business. If I want my show to survive, if I want my show to continue to grow, I have to gauge people's interest, and I have to reach more people, which is exactly what I did, and which is exactly what this clip from the interview would do. And I'm grateful to Lacey and Talk of Love for coming on the show and for supporting my show. So I released a clip of what Lacey said about Heather on Instagram and on YouTube. And since Lacey's interview has aired, Heather has reached out again on Instagram and on YouTube, and she's been flooding my DMs, accusing me of slander, saying that I am creating a platform for other people to slander and harass her. She said that these interviews are considered harassment against her, and she's demanded that I remove both Lacey and Dave's interviews and give her my lawyer's contact information. Now, as a podcaster, which is considered a media outlet, it's very challenging for a public figure such as Heather, who has appeared on multiple reality shows, recently hosted a public podcast, and has a very large social media following. So she is definitely considered a public figure. When you have a large social media following, have done multiple TV shows, and have recently hosted a public podcast, you can't really sue a media outlet for slander, let alone a podcaster. Like, what are you going to sue me for? Like, what do I have that you want? Like, what are you going to gain from any of this is my question. And again, any of the questions that I asked Lacey or Dave in relation to Heather were based off of public information. These are comments that are available online. Granted, she has removed her Instagram comments, but like, these were comments she made publicly on YouTube and Instagram. These interviews were not about Heather. They were not designed to be about Heather, though she did come up in them. But again, Dave had a 35-minute interview. Lacey had a 1-hour interview. And so it's not like it was a full interview bashing Heather. There was no intention on hurting Heather. I actually think that my comments, Lacey's comments, and even Dave's comments were actually complimentary of her many times throughout the interview. So nobody wants to see her hurt. I genuinely enjoyed watching these shows on VH1 and loved getting to go back to that like era of reality TV that like I just wanted to catch up with these people. I didn't care to be in any beef with Heather Chadwell. So I politely responded to Heather, apologized if any of the line of questioning hurt her feelings. I also reminded her about the conversation that she and I had where I did invite her on the show to clarify her own comments, to respond to anything that Dave said. Like, she was invited. I was very, very nice to her. I only tried to be cordial with her and understand that she was hurt and let her know that like I don't want this to feel like we are attacking you. I tried to make that point very clear. And again, to accuse me of harassment or slander and to demand that I take down my interviews, like that's just, it's ridiculous. And so she went on with a list of accusations about myself, about my show, and that's the point where I decided, okay, like this is time to block you because like I was nice, she kept going. I tried to ignore her, she kept going. So when she continues to keep going after I haven't responded to her messages and like stopped even engaging, and she continues to keep going, then that's when I'm like, no, you know, at this point, I'm blocking you. I have nothing, like, I have zero interest in keeping up with any of this with you. And again, this is the only time I ever really want to address this because I don't care to keep this going. Like, to me, this is petty. I have other shit that I could be worried about than to be upset that somebody, you know, is ranting and going off about me and my show and guests that I've had on. And like, look, I have never taken down an interview. Ever. I never will take down an interview, nor will I be bullied into doing so. So I'll just say that, like, you're not going to come over here and try to bully me with lawyers or bully me with throwing tantrums on social media. Like, I was nice to you. I tried to be nice to you. I invited you on the show originally. I invited you on the show again when you said that you were hurt. I told you that I wanted to make sure you felt heard, that you felt seen, that you got an opportunity to give an interview. She said that she accused me of trying to set her up, and she accused me of, you know, trying to bully her into doing an interview, or she said something about like she didn't want to be punished for not doing an interview, and she thought that's why I brought Lacey on the show. Like, again, all of these people were invited on the show prior to me ever knowing that she was wrapped up in any sort of drama recently. Like, that was not my intention for going into this throwback reality TV week, like, at all. And the fact that it's blown out this far, like, the only reason it's even blown out this far is because she continues to make it a thing. And so if you're going to continue to make it a thing, then I'm going to end it on my end, and I'm going to address it. I'm going to say that, like, I'm not going to engage in this any further. And again, you are not going to bully me into taking down any interviews, and you're not going to bully me into, you know, feeling badly about doing my job. I'm sorry. Like, you made this public. You are a public figure. I feel like at this point, she says she's grown so much that, like, look, I don't even want to go there and like make any nasty comments about her, because at the end of the day, I wish her well. I hope, you know, whatever peace, and I said this in my interview with Lacey, and I even said this in my interview with Dave. I hope that she finds whatever peace that she's looking for. I hope that she is doing lots of meditation right now in quarantine. And like, at the end of the day, I don't want to see anybody hurting. I don't want to see anybody in agony. Again, that's why I don't want to drag this out anymore. But yeah, that's my piece with the whole Heather Chadwell drama and beef. And hopefully I never have to talk about this again. But we shall see.